Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. You might have heard about the escalation that we're having in Somalia between Egypt, Ethiopia, and now Turkey is in the line as well. However, not many people are talking about the link between Israel. In this video, I wanted to elaborate a bit further about what's happening and the situation in Somalia, how it's linked to Bab el-Mandeb, and how it's linked to Ansarullah, and how it's linked to Israel as well. So when it comes to Somalia, firstly, you need to know a bit of background about the land itself. It witnessed a lot of turmoil. It's split into many tribes. Many parts of them used to control several parts of Somalia. We had governments going back and forth, and we had a movement towards independence in what is called Somaliland, which is the area that is close to Bab el-Mandeb, that is of concern to Ethiopia and is of concern to other countries as well. We had a defense agreement between Egypt and Somalia. Egypt and Ethiopia have a lot of problems, especially when it comes to the dam, and they haven't been seeing eye to eye. There have been increased escalations, de-escalations, talks to mediate, try and solve problems. Clearly things have gone wrong, and there has been a level of mismanagement when it comes to the conflict and misunderstandings. However, Ethiopia, it does not have access to the sea. So to them, they need access to the sea. That access could come through Somaliland. Now, there is a notion that Somaliland would lease them, would lease Ethiopia, the port, a port that is not only going to be an economic port. Of course, most countries are generally interested in ports when it comes to economy. However, when it comes to Ethiopia, you're talking about militarily too. The fact that we're having this talk about this port now is very interesting. Of course, Israel has been suffering economically, mainly by the actions of Ansarullah, who have been imposing this embargo on Israel on their own for so long, for almost a year now, facing so much problems, so many economic problems, facing these military challenges from the world's biggest superpower, the United States of America, and Britain as well, in what I like to call the genocide coalition that is formed of several countries, but primarily it's the United States and the United Kingdom going to save Israel. However, they have their own reasonings as well, that we want to continue to trade with whoever we want to trade with, and we don't want Ansarullah to restrict us from doing anything. Israel cannot do a lot when it comes to Yemen. As a matter of fact, when they conducted the attack on Al-Hudaydah, they were thinking that they will lose some of their fighter jets on the way. Many people in Israel said, we didn't think that all of the jets would go and all of them would come back. So, to go and attack in Yemen from Israel, and of course, the genocide coalition, they wouldn't do everything on behalf of Israel at the end of the day. They would do the actions based on their needs. They do support Israel, of course, but that doesn't mean they submit to the Israeli will completely. When you talk about the United States and Britain, particularly when it comes to Bab el-Mandeb. So they did not carry out certain attacks in Yemen as Israel hoped they would. They did conduct certain attacks. They weren't that effective. We had Yemen consistently taking down these drones and UAVs for the United States and the genocide coalition, and they are continuing regardless of all the pressure. Israel found it very important to try and get a solution now. Why are they trying to get a military solution? It's because they're not looking for a political solution. So the Israeli government wants to normalize what's happening in Gaza, and they want to continue conducting this genocide in Gaza, and they're not planning to reach an agreement. But if they don't plan to reach an agreement, they would need to face certain repercussions. What are these repercussions? Well, continued attacks. Number one, from Hezbollah in Lebanon. number 2 from Ansarullah, and then from the other resistance fronts and potentially Iran. Now, when it comes to Yemen, that would be one of their biggest things. Why? Because it's hurting the economy of the country, and Israel cannot sustain very prolonged periods of this war of attrition without having some sort of an answer. And as Israel always does, they want to find a military solution. That military solution could be in the form of a presence in the Bab el-Mandeb area close to Yemen. So the coast of Yemen would be facing you if this Ethiopian lease goes ahead with Somaliland. Now, Egypt knows that, and Turkey knows that too. That's why we had both of them participating. Firstly, we've had Egyptian army planes going down in Somalia. And of course, we had the meeting between Turkey and Egypt saying they were coordinating about everything, including Somalia. Why is Israel pushing that now? And of course, there are many other things to do with the cooperation between Israel and Ethiopia, like the fact that we had reports of Israel sending them the Iron Dome to protect the dam from any potential attacks that may come from Egypt. Now, they said, the Ethiopians, that we can defend and no one can threaten our dam. Well, if no one can threaten them, you must have something. What is it that you have? And their ties with Israel and the fact that Israel is using that as leverage to get what they want in Bab al-Mandeb. And we're also seeing this escalation now, because see, most things are being coordinated now. Most things are being connected. We're seeing that because of certain positions as well that are happening with Gaza too. Don't forget that we're going nowhere when it comes to the negotiations. The Egyptian side is showing more support to the Palestinian side when it comes to the demands, in particular to withdraw from the Philadelphia corridor. We spoke about in one of my previous videos about the visit of the top military figure of Egypt in Rafah and what that means and the messages that they're sending primarily to Israel. And Israel is looking to open another front. And this is not something abnormal. Countries do that very regularly, depending on where it's easier to open that front and how much you can be active and productive when it comes to that front based on your needs. Like we saw Ukraine threatening Russia in Somalia as well. We saw Ukraine threatening Russia in other parts of Africa too. So they have their conflicts in their geographical locations. However, these conflicts can extend to other locations based on the presence of each country respectively. It's all in all, it's like you are seeing this global war, but without talking too much. For example, the Turks and the Egyptians didn't talk a lot about all of the equipment that they sent to Somalia to potentially stop any attack coming from Ethiopia. Ethiopia, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will be invading Somaliland or Somalia imminently. However, they put a lot of forces inside on the borders with Somal. So to the other sides, they need to prepare from this attack because they don't want a project that would go to Bab el-Mandeb that wouldn't only have an effect on what's happening in Yemen, it would have an effect on what happens up north as well. And that's briefly what I wanted to talk to you about. The fact that we're seeing an expansion of what's happening, and it's not only being restricted to a geographical location. It's not being restricted to a geographical location when it comes to Bab el-Mandeb, when it comes to the Red Sea, when it comes to the Mediterranean Sea, when it comes to warnings, global warnings going to countries supporting the resistance fronts against Israel, and the opposite, countries threatening the countries that are aligned with Israel. Now, is there going to be a bigger escalation in that region? The presence, the military presence, is there to be as a deterrence, because from a military perspective, one of the main things is deterrence. You show power to try and prevent war. That's the main thing that you want to do. You show presence to prevent a potential war. However, it's not guaranteed that the Ethiopians, especially if they have a good level of backing, that they will back down on this opportunity, because Ethiopia is a very large country, no access to the sea. To them, that would be their exit, even if that means that they would need to cooperate with Israel on it and potentially give a lot of flexibility to Israel in the Red Sea. That would lead to what? Lead to Israel trying to continue and manage the conflict simultaneously with the continuation of the genocide in Gaza. So Benjamin Netanyahu could come and tell the Israelis that, look, I know that it's still ongoing. We haven't got everyone yet, although we have mounting pressure on him now, of course, unprecedented protests and pressure internationally as well. And they're suffering internally on every level, societally, on a societal level, on a military level, on a political level as well. But he could provide some answer that might convince some people that, look, we have some sort of control when it comes to Bab el-Mandeb. Why? Because they have weapons, Israel, to have more attacks on Ansarullah. But these weapons would be much more easily deployed and used when they're very close to Yemen, because it's extremely expensive and consuming and risky to carry out airstrikes on Yemen. However, when they're very close and they want to use either their air force or their missiles or whatever they want to use, it would be much easier for them. However, even if that goes ahead, and there's a big likelihood that it won't, because you're talking about countries with the size of Turkey and Egypt joining forces against this campaign from working, Ansarullah still didn't show everything that they have. They said that they have a lot of things to show that they haven't shown yet, and these people, whenever they said that they have surprises, they generally showed them. So this is what I want to talk to you about in this video. I hope I elaborated a little bit further. I just wanted to have an input on this topic, and I hope I've added some beneficial information for you, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Peace.